Hello, and welcome to my 7.1.5 Windwalker Monk PvP guide. In this guide, I will be going over what has changed so far for Windwalker from the launch of the expansion to where we are currently at. My last guide had pretty positive responses, so I'll be continuing the same format. I'll go over what talents you should be using for different situations, including your honor talents, macros, and some rotations. I won't be going over our artifact as we're so far into the expansion that most people are getting their artifacts maxed out at this point. If you're completely new to Windwalker, as in you just hit 110, or you're thinking about leveling a Windwalker, then refer to my artifact guide where I go over which path you should take first to maximize your damage. I'll leave a link to that in the description if that's something you're interested in. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and let's dive into what changes have come to Windwalkers in patch 7.1.5. So let's go over what's changed for Windwalker since the release of Legion. All of our talents have remained the same except for our second choice in the level 60 tier. What used to be there was Dizzying Kicks, which would passively slow your target by 70% for 3 seconds every time you blackout kick. It's now replaced with Summon Ox Statue, which I find to be a bit odd since their whole focus for this expansion was spec and class identity, but then they go and give us a talent that really makes no sense to our spec. If anything, they should just give us back Charging Ox Wave if they're going to go back on their philosophy. And if you don't know what Charging Ox Wave was, basically you would shoot out an ox in a straight line in front of you for like 10 or 15 yards, and everyone it touches would be stunned for 3 seconds. Now let's move on to the honor talents. We fortunately had some good honor talent changes. So many that I apologize if I accidentally skip over one. We now have Fast Feet, which reduces the duration of all snares by 20% and gives us a 15% movement speed increase for 3 seconds when we are hit by an ability. I don't believe this buff is applied for magic damage, but I might be wrong. Control of Miss, every 10 seconds our refuse will be instant cast, and every 1 chi you spend reduces the cooldown of it resetting. Zen Meditation was replaced with Zen Moment, which is basically just replacing a useless talent with another useless talent. When you use Zen Moment, which costs 3 chi, you'll have 20% reduced damage taken and take 20% increased healing for 10 seconds. If the tooltip ended right there, this talent would actually be amazing. But instead, I'll read you the rest and you can kind of figure out why this talent is so fucking worthless. Each attack that triggers combo strikes reduces the effectiveness of the buff by 5%. So if you use Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, you're already down to just 5% damage reduction and increased healing taken. It's shit, just don't take it. Next we have Disabling Reach, which replaced Double Dragon. So instead of having the option to have 2 charges on Flying Serpent Kick, we now have the option to give our Disable a 10-yard range, which is very strong and I see most of the top monks using. Lastly, we have Grapple Weapon. If you played back in Mists of Pandaria, then you'll recognize this spell. You fire off a rope spear, grappling the target's weapon and shield, returning them to you for 6 seconds. So basically it's a ranged disarm that lasts 6 seconds and is on a 1-minute cooldown. When you want to get off that darkest ground. So as a Windwalker in PvP, the best talent path that you can take is Chi Wave, Tiger's Lust, Energizing Elixir, Lake Sweep, Healing Elixir, Xuen, and Whirling Dragon Punch. Now this is as of January 13th, just a few days after the patches went live. At any point in time, any of these talents could get nerfed, making them pointless. Always keep a tab open on the patch notes and hotfixes for when they get updated. If you don't care for the details, go ahead and skip to the next section. If you'd like me to go more in depth, then stick around. So in our first talent tier, we have Chi Burst, Eye of the Tiger, and Chi Wave. We can automatically rule out Eye of the Tiger because of the fact that it doesn't help us maintain our hit combo or our mastery, and doesn't do enough damage to make up for it. Now you can take Chi Burst and still do decent with it, as it does count as an ability and therefore helps us maintain our hit combo and mastery, but because it's on a 30-second cooldown and it's a cast, which means you won't always get it off, especially when you're being focused by more than one person, it's inferior to Chi Wave. Chi Wave is instant cast, and it's on a 15-second cooldown, which makes it the best talent choice for this tier. For our next tier, we really have 2 viable options. Chi Torpedo is fun to play around with on a flag carrying map, as you can cover a huge distance from flag room to flag room. However, Tiger's Lust is the winner here because of the fact that it's not just a 70% movement speed buff, that also breaks roots and snares, and is only on a 30-second cooldown, but you can also use it on party members, meaning if your warlock or healer is being trained by 2 dumbfuck melee who only know how to tunnel vision onto something that has to cast, you have more flexibility in how you can help peel for your caster and reduce as much pressure as possible from the enemy team. Celerity is just poop, so don't even worry about it. Next we have our 45 tier. Ascension is pretty poop, so don't worry about it. The other 2 options we have is Energizing Elixir and Power Strikes. Now I saw that some high rated Windwalkers actually have run Power Strikes and have been having success with it. I played with it a little bit and found that it actually wasn't too bad of a choice. It all really comes down to preference in my opinion. Do you like being able to have on-demand chi that you can use whenever, in the case that you need to get off a clutch Fist of Fury stun to secure a kill, or do you like passively gaining extra chi? Me personally, I like Energizing Elixir, but like I said, Power Strikes is definitely not a bad choice, so play around with both and see which one you like the most. On to the level 60 tier, we have Ring of Peace, Summon Black Ox Statue, and Leg Sweep. First off, Summon Black Ox Statue has zero potential whatsoever in PvP. If anything, you can use it to easily tag mobs while you're doing your world quests or leveling. Since it's a new talent for Windwalker, I'll just quickly go over what it does. It places a statue on the ground that pulses Threat. That's it. Threat doesn't have any meaning in PvP, so it's therefore useless. Now, Ring of Peace is a fun talent to mess around with. If any of our abilities has gone through the most changes since our class was announced, it's Ring of Peace. It used to be a big green bubble that made whoever was standing in it unable to use any damaging abilities. Then it was changed to just Disarm. Then it was changed to Incapacitate. Now it's a big green circle that bounces anyone who walks into it out. Also, it should be noted that it's no longer casted on yourself or another party member, it's put on the ground. If you want to compare it to another spell, imagine a Mage's Ring of Frost, but instead it's a big green circle and it doesn't freeze you, it bounces you outside of it. So, it could be fun to use in a map like Eye of the Storm, throw a ring down in the middle and watch people get bounced around. I could see some potential for it on Blade's Edge, which is the arena map that has 2 floors. But outside of that, it really isn't that good, just because of how solid our other talent choice is. Leg Sweep. Knocks all enemies within 5 yards down, stunning them for 5 seconds. 45-second cooldown. This talent has been the go-to for Windwalkers basically since they came out. It's just so solid with our spec and provides great defense by being able to stun an entire team for 5 seconds. But it's also amazing for offense. Being able to lock down your kill target, preventing peels from their teammates if you can get them both in it, is amazing. This is by far the best talent choice for this tier. For our 75 tier, the best all-around choice is Healing Elixirs. Diffuse Magic is good against caster cleaves, but this is Legion and those are very rare to come by. Most of the time when I'm queuing, it's 2 idiots training my Warlock until he dies. But if you do get against a caster that can deal a shit ton of damage in a short amount of time, like a Frost Mage or a Destrolock, for sure take this talent. If they made this talent 60 seconds, I'd be happy with it. Right now I feel the cooldown is a little too long. For our other choice, Dampen Harm for the first time ever has finally become a somewhat decent talent to take. The new Dampen Harm reads, reduces all damage taken by 20% to 50% depending on how much damage each attack does. Now I don't believe this makes the talent better than Healing Elixirs, but it definitely does come very close to beating Diffuse Magic. The only thing holding it back right now for me is that it has a 30-second longer cooldown than Diffuse. I haven't played around with it enough in this season to know if it's better than Diffuse, but I can imagine it's very good to use against something like a Destrolock who can dish out 400 to 500,000 Chaos Bolts. Being able to reduce that by up to 50% is amazing, and since Diffuse is only 60%, which is only a 10% higher reduction, and is only applicable to magic damage, Dampen Harm is definitely a talent choice that you may see becoming more popular and high rating. Next, we have our 90 tier. For the first time since early Mists of Pandaria and a little bit in Warlords or Draenor, Xuen has become relevant again. You'll see most of the top Windwalkers playing with this new Whirling Dragon Punch Xuen setup instead of the hit combo Serenity setup that we've seen since the launch of the expansion. Though it doesn't state it in the patch notes, Xuen is doing insanely more damage in 7.1.5. If I had to guess, I'd say that the 100% damage increase on Crackling Jade Lightning may also be working on Xuen's Crackling Tiger Lightning. Because of this, Xuen is the best talent choice for this tier as of this video. The Rushing Jade one is fun to play around with and brings back nostalgia for me since Mists of Pandaria is one of my favorite expansions. Outside of that, it doesn't deal quite enough damage to be more useful over Xuen or Hit Combo. The main talent that most people have been choosing since Legion launch was Hit Combo. However, I assume the reason the most high-rated Windwalkers are using Xuen over this is because of our base damage being buffed by 8% on most of our abilities. This gives us a little bit more flexibility in choosing other talents. Also, Xuen is doing a shit ton of damage as you can see from this little clip that I have on the screen right now. Moving on to our final talent tier, we have Chi Orbit, Whirling Dragon Punch, and Serenity. Chi Orbit doesn't deal enough damage to compete with the other two options, and it's also just clunky and feels weird. Whirling Dragon Punch is an ability that can only be used when our Fist of Fury and Rising Sun Kick is on cooldown. It deals 360,000 damage, which is already pretty decent by itself, but it also deals that damage in an AoE. So if you can get a bunch of people stacked up and use this, you can deal around 1 million damage in just one Whirling Dragon Punch on 3 targets. Now if you take this option, you'll also have Storm, Earth, and Fire, which got buffed in 7.1.5. Serenity basically makes all of your chi spending abilities cost nothing for 8 seconds, deal 45% more damage, and have their cooldowns halved. This also replaces Storm, Earth, and Fire. So the reason this talent is so good is because of how devastating our single target burst can be when you pair this talent with our mastery and hit combo. It also works very well with our artifact trait, Gale Burst. Putting Touch of Death up on a target and spamming as many abilities as you can within that 8-second window is vital for making that tick at the end do a lot of burst. Serenity helps the most with that. Also, since Serenity halves the CD of any ability you use during it, you can use Rising Sun Kick and it will be back up in 4.5 seconds instead of 9. Strike of the Windlord will also be on a 20-second cooldown instead of 40-second if you use it during Serenity. But because Storm, Earth, and Fire got buffed, Whirling Dragon Punch is the best talent choice here. You can still play Serenity with hit combo and do fine, but as of this video, Gwen paired with Storm, Earth, and Fire and Whirling Dragon Punch is dealing a shit ton of damage. Moving on to our honor talents, this will be pretty straightforward since I already went over the changes in the beginning of the video. If you're not playing Orc, you're going to be using Honorable Medallion. If you're Orc, Relentless is the best choice here. Reinforced Armor is the best all-around talent, but Sparring is the go-to when you're facing a melee cleave as it helps to mitigate a lot of damage in the long run. The best talent choice for our third tier is Fast Feet since they nerfed Yulon's Gift. Instead of snares being dispelled when we roll and Flying Serpent Kick, it's only when we Flying Serpent Kick, making the talent pretty meh. Eminence makes it so we can transfer more frequently, which is good if you're on a map like Blade's Edge, where jumping off the bridge and porting back up is a strategy. It also works well with our artifact trait Healing Winds, which heals us for 20% of our health every time we transfer, which is a pretty huge heal. I took Fast Feet over the other two because it reduces all snares by 20%, which is really good, and also we gain 15% movement speed when we suffer an attack. Now I'm not 100% sure if this means any damaging ability, so I don't know if this buff will be applied if you're hit by like a Lava Burst or an Ice Lance, but either way it's still the best choice here as it gives us the most mobility and uptime. For the next tier, we can automatically get rid of Zen Moment. It's terrible and nobody plays it. We're now left with Control of Mist and Fortifying Elixir. Fortifying Elixir reduces the damage taken by 20%, increases our health by 20%, and is only on a 1.5 minute cooldown. Control of Mist gives us a free fuse every 10 seconds, and the time it takes for this effect to charge is reduced by 1 second for every chi we spend. So if you went with this talent choice, you'd be looking at getting a free cast of fuse every 5 or 6 seconds with our basic rotation. The only reason I don't like this over Fortifying Elixir is because of how much more damage Fortifying Elixir can mitigate, and how much it can save your life in a tight situation. I can see Control of Mist being good against something like a Rot Cleave, where having a constant heal going will help with the constant flow of damage. It also could be pretty good if you're facing a melee where it'll be difficult for you to get any casts off. But outside of those scenarios, Fortifying Elixir is the best talent choice here. Next, we have Tiger Style, Disabling Reach, and Ride the Wind. I personally like Tiger Style because of how fun it is, and also how much more control you have over your character. The best talent choice here is probably Disabling Reach, however. I know that Zen Lee, the rank 1 Windwalker in North America right now, is using Disabling Reach. But it did just get nerfed from 15 to 10 yards, so maybe it won't be as good as it was anymore, and people will go back to using Tiger Style. Ride the Wind is a really fun concept, but it's extremely difficult to form a solid path that your teammates can run through. Most of the time, I just find myself putting my character way out of position just to try and form a path for my teammates to run through, and half the time they don't even do it because it's better for them to just run around a pillar than it is to run in a straight line. So for me personally, I choose Tiger Style. If you're comfortable with not controlling where your Flying Serpent Kick goes, and would rather have a long range slow, then go with Disabling Reach. And for our final tier, we have Heavy Handed Strikes, Grapple Weapon, and Spinning Fire Blossom. Heavy Handed Strikes got nerfed. It now only stuns on the first tick of Fist of Fury, which is a pretty shitty nerf in my opinion. The main problem Windwalkers have always had is getting our Fist and Leg Sweep stun off on laggy targets. We usually have to completely root them with Disable in order to land it. And up until this nerf, we could reliably Fist of Fury and still be able to chase down our target in case they lagged out of the stun. And yes, even though it's now a toggled ability, people still lag out of it, even though the game has to recognize that you are within a melee range to even be able to use it. Just fucking amazing job, Blizzard. Really. Grapple Weapon is good against melee/caster comps. The reason I don't like it for double melee is because our Fist stun can peel 2 targets at once every 20 seconds, while Grapple Weapon only peels 1 target for 8 seconds. Now when you're facing a melee caster cleave, you can safely sit on the caster without worrying about your caster getting ass raped by some Mongoloid Demon Hunter or Death Knight. If they're in trouble, you can just use your ranged disarm to shut down their damage for a whole 8 seconds. And most of the time, because it's a disarm, they won't trinket it. I'm going to try and blast through this real quick as I don't have very many complicated macros and I feel that most of them don't need an explanation. I have Arena 1, 2, 3 Paralysis, Arena 1 and 2 Karma, Party Member 1 and 2 Detox, Effuse, and Tiger's Lust, and Focus Kick and Disable. The reason I like having Arena 1, 2, 3 Paralysis instead of Focus is because of when you're facing a team like RMD where shutting down their opener gives you a massive advantage in the match. If you don't know how to decide if an enemy is Arena 1, 2, or 3, all you have to do is look at what order the frames are in on your screen. The top frame will be Arena 1, the middle Arena 2, and the last Arena 3. If you can see that the mage is Arena 1 on your frame, you can take advantage of that and spam Paralysis Arena 1, so as soon as he pops out with a polymorph, you can shut it down and prevent a lot of damage and momentum from the enemy team. Also, since Grapple Weapon is a viable option now, I recommend making a focus Grapple Weapon macro. I'll leave a copy and paste to all of these in the description if you want to copy all of the macros that I use. For this part of the video, it's much easier for me to just leave a text on the screen that shows what abilities to use in what order, and then have gameplay of me using these rotations so that you can see it for yourself.
Turn us to thousands, and we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon. Turn us to thousands, and on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays, and on.
Outside of our burst and our opener, our rotation as a Windwalker is very situational and easy to understand. You just hit abilities when they come off cooldown and do your best to keep up your hit combo and mastery. Well guys, that's going to do it for me. In my last guide I said I had a goal of reaching 10 million subscribers by the end of the year. Though we did not reach our goal, we got very, very close with nearly 250 subscribers gained since I made that guide. Thank you to everyone who finds my videos entertaining or informational enough that you consider subscribing to my channel, and thank you to everyone who gives this video a like. Speaking of which, if this video helped you, like it so it can reach others. If you have a buddy who's trying to learn Windwalker, give them a link to this video and hopefully it'll help them. Thank you all so much for watching. Have an amazing day and stay beautiful.